everybody. Hi there. Hi. Welcome. Thank you for the clap. It wasn't necessary, but thank you. Thank you all for coming here tonight on such a short notice. Thank you, Sloan, for putting it up amazingly fast. I'm Matthew. I'm with New Worlds Institute, and we're really happy to have you all tonight to discuss about new worlds and the way we can settle new worlds. Rick Tumlinson here will talk about his approach to space and his convictions around space and sharing the vision with you. But I would like also to do a little shameless plug about the New Worlds Conference. It's going to happen in October on the 16th and 17th, so it's Friday and Saturday, and where we're going to have great speakers, a 2-day conference, a concert, kids competition to go to space. It's going to be fantastic. We have posters, we have postcards. Please come to us, to me, to Jay, to Megan, to Matt, to Rick at the end of the conference, at the end of the discussion, and we'll talk more about it together. So without further ado, I will let the floor to Rick.
Great. So, really, thank you all for coming. So we're going to be kind of casual, and if this thing goes down, I'm just going to bail. Do an EVA. So yeah, we are doing our conference here at the Palmer Center this fall. I do want to mention that tonight is the beginning. We would like to begin nucleating a space community in Austin. And we wanted to thank the University of Texas MSTC program that's working with us and being very supportive. A part of this began with them holding an event called Blast Off at the university back in April. Some of you were there. Some of this you'll be slightly repetitive for some of you that were there. But it's a great idea. Austin, the Chamber of Commerce, I don't know why I put this on. The Chamber of Commerce recently voted on the idea that they were going to that Austin was going to become a space city. As you know, there's a lot going on. I'm going to touch on some of that in a minute. But I just recently moved here. Actually lived here in the 3rd grade, went to St. Elmo, and I went to Porter Junior High at one point. My dad would go to Nam, and he would leave us here at Bergstrom Air Force Base. But now I'm home, and so you're stuck with me. And New Worlds Institute is going to be based here. The New Worlds Institute is an organization that is focused on putting human beings on the moon, Mars, and in free space, which is the space between worlds, and doing so in our lifetime. The analogy might be, what if you were in Europe in around 1500, and you knew there was some guys out there named Sir Elon Musk, or Sir Jeffrey Bezos, or Sir Paul Allen, and they were all building ships called the Mayflower. And you knew they were going to be ready in 15 to 20 years. What would you do to prepare the pilgrims, the new pilgrims, to go on those ships and go to the new world and have both the technology and the culture to survive and thrive when they got there? That's the case we're in right now. That's the period of time we're in right now. It's Jeff Bezos of Amazon, Elon Musk, SpaceX, Paul Allen, others. The Russians are getting involved. The UAE just announced a $6 billion space program. China's going. Other people are coming out of the woodworks. And it's going to happen. So that's the goal of the New Worlds Institute. I've been involved for a long time in the battles to sort of clear the way for companies like SpaceX to fly through another organization, the Space Frontier Foundation, that actually wrote the legislation that allowed SpaceX to fly. We cleared the minefield for them politically. I've been involved in a lot of those battles, and now I'm really interested in, as I was saying to somebody on the phone today, not fighting about what kind of car we're going to take to Disneyland. I want to start talking about what's going to happen at Disneyland. And that's what the organization is about. How do we get there? How do we create the tools? How do we create the systems? And how do we create a culture that can survive and thrive on the other end? So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to do a short version of a longer talk, and even this is somewhat long, but we're going to talk about what is happening, what you've seen in the news, where it came from, what came out of Apollo, and how we're moving forward, and how we should move forward if we're going to actually turn space into a frontier this time, and not end up with what we call flags and footprints. So, now it doesn't work. Here's my two. Now I've lost it. This one's not working. You're gonna have to go back. Oh, it's gonna show up. We're gonna try this for a minute. If it works, we'll move down.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay, while he's doing that, we're gonna do a little contest. I have here a desktop collectible kit, which includes a mug from my company, NewSpace Industries, an asteroid mining company based in Silicon Valley at NASA Ames Research Center, one of the two. A cup, which says, "Kiss my asteroid." I grabbed this stuff off my desk. A SpaceX pad, and a SpaceX unused pencil. I know.
Unused.
There's one or two collectors in the audience going, "Yeah." So, here's the question. Who was the first company in the world to launch a human being into space? It's a trick question.
The United Corporation of the United States.
This gentleman back here raised his hand.
Has there been one?
Yes, it's not that trick.
It's a Burger Dance company called Scaled Composites.
Incorrect.
Is it Richard Garriott's company?
I'm sorry, incorrect.
Russia.
The Russian Federation.
Wrong. I'm gonna say, I didn't say they were alive.
Oh, Orbital.
No,
Armadillo?
no.
So do we need the name?
The name of the company. Okay. They were called Celestis, part of Space Services, and they're based in Houston, Texas. And they've been flying human beings into space since the 90s. They were dead. Ashes. It was a trick question. I'm gonna give you one more. It's actually closely related to the first one, in a sense, potentially. What's the name of the first ever commercial company to fly a rocket into space? First ever anywhere, and where was it flown? Anywhere on Earth.
Bell.
Pardon?
Bell.
Non-government contractor, not working for the government at the time. A real commercial company flying a commercial self-funded rocket into space. Anybody?
Who is Raytheon?
You don't have to form it. It was well structured, but no. Anybody? Okay. They're called Space Services. The rocket was called the Conestoga. It was flown in 82 or 84 off of Matagorda Island, Texas. The first ever commercial space flight, or commercial rocket, was flown. There was a company formed by Deke Slate, former astronaut, and a gentleman who helped fund Rice University, whose name I just blanked. All right, I'm gonna give you one more. What's the name of the first so-called space tourist?
Dennis Tito.
Boom. We have a winner! I actually signed him up. I thought I didn't think I was gonna have to go that deep into the well. I thought I was gonna go with the first one. All right. So anyway, moving along. So I worked on a bunch of different little projects. I worked in a company called Lunacorp. In the 90s, we were going to try and put rovers on the moon. We didn't make it. We ended up flying a Radio Shack commercial. It was the first commercial ever on the space station. It was actually under Dennis Tito's seat when he flew We had to hire a cosmonaut, because you can hire cosmonauts, you can't hire astronauts. I have a spacesuit company that's up in Midland called Orbital Outfitters. We're building the world's most advanced pressure chamber right now. This is important because Midland has given us $7 million from the city government to build the pressure chamber. They also gave a company called Xcore $10 million. And the reason it's the world's most advanced is the entire pressure chamber is made of wet sand. Funny story, we went to the deep sea people and we said, we're building a pressure chamber and it has to be really strong, and they laughed at us because the kind of pressures people who go down into the ocean deal with are far greater than we're ever gonna face. So we're working on different kinds of spacesuits. This is a project worked on. This is actually getting revived. And then I came to Texas a few years ago. We formed the Texas Space Alliance. We worked with a company called Blue Origin and passed the first commercial space legislation in Texas, which is a liability law. And this was our goal at the time. It's at Texas Space Alliance's 501c4 lobby. There was a video that's going to try and go. Of course, it's going to try and go now without audio, so we're going to skip the video. This is about our company, Deep Space Industries. Deep Space Industries, as I said, is a space resources asteroid mining company. The reason asteroid mining is interesting is that anything carried into space is so expensive. If you went out and scooped up a pound of dirt and you carried it into space right now, it'd be worth about $10,000 unprocessed. Normally, I would say having a slick video is great, but you need a great team. So imagine you just saw a very slick video. It's on the website, Deep Space Industries. We have an excellent team, including Mark Raymond, who has a spacecraft right now, works with JPL as spacecraft out at the Ceres, asteroid Ceres. And Dr. John Lewis, who wrote the book, Rain of Iron and Ice and Mining the Sky. I heavily recommend it if you're into space. And yes, it's important to try and save the planet. And we believe you can do that by actually putting your roughnecks from Armageddon. If your roughnecks are actually working in space at the time and having the capability to be able to operate in space, they can do a lot more. We are working on some near-term projects. This is a very small 3U CubeSat we're looking at. 3U, a U is 10 by 10 by 10 centimeters. That's a demo. And we're probably some point in the future getting to see some of this first, in a sense. My communications director sitting right there going, don't. But we're going to probably announce Prospector 1 very soon, and it'll be our first rendezvous with an asteroid by 2020. There are 2 companies doing these things. And we're going to assay it, figure out what it's worth, come back and get funding in the market in our A round. We're just completing a bridge round right now. Then we launched the dragonflies, they bring back samples. Fireflies, go out and look, dragonflies bring back samples. And these are called harvester ants. You're picking up a theme here. And then when we get it, we do all kinds of cool stuff to it. I am not gonna go into this chart. I hate charts like this. I just wanted you to see that we have them. Because we want to be the gas station in the solar system. And I can't tell you anymore, but if you're an interested investor, please talk to me afterwards, and I will explain all about it, and we'll get you under an NDA, and we'll have a great conversation. So here's the thing. We give the current generations a very bleak view of the future. Anybody who just saw Mad Max knows exactly what I'm talking about. We talk about limits to growth, limits to resources. It's a dead end. You're getting to clean up our mess. Thank you very much. We screwed it over. Here you go. Here's the mop. Clean up the planet. It's done. In other words, the future is going to be less than the present. We've locked ourselves into a cage, a psychological cage, about what's possible. The interesting thing to me is that anybody would think it's all over. Because actually, we're at the very beginning. In fact, we're not even at the beginning. We're not even at the beginning of the beginning of the beginning. There are more galaxies or more planets out there than there are grains of sand on all the deserts and beaches of the planet. It's an infinite, almost essentially infinite realm of possibility. It lies starting just 100 miles above us. Many of us in this field kind of came up in the 70s and the 80s. And what was interesting about this period of time was we had been to the moon, so we could do anything. Voyager and Galileo were flying out into the solar system. We could do anything. It was an amazing time. And of course, you had great shows on TV. Now think about this. If you're somewhere between, there's a book called Outliers you might want to look at. There's a little bit of stuff about some of our generations in there. But if you're a child growing up in this period of time, you're watching Apollo happen. You're watching Vietnam, terrible things like that going on, or the end of that, just post. It's not a happy time. And then good stuff comes on. We've landed on the moon. We're doing all these things. We're doing Skylab. All these great things are happening. We're going out. We're exploring the solar system. Click. Da, 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 da. It all starts to roll together in your head. You're reading Heinlein and Clark and Asimov, and it's all going together in your head to become something that's possible, something amazing. And of course, this comes along. And, oh my God. By the way, it's not an accident the SpaceX rocket's called a Falcon. It is not an accident. And of course, you get the girl, if you're a guy, or you're a girl, you get the guy, whatever, you know. So it all goes together into a big romantic possibility. At the same time, we're seeing the rise of the environmental movement. This is the shot, I think, for Apollo 8, the little blue marble. Suddenly we begin to realize what a precious thing life is. It all starts to roll into your head. By the way, the same kids that were growing up during that period, of course, now are staying in school because they want a part of this. They want to be this. They want to be an astronaut. They want to be Captain Kirk. They want to be Han Solo. They want to stay in school and they study and they learn things like programming and things like that. During that same period of time, there was a story being told, this was in the mid to late 70s, that there was a thing called the Space Shuttle. The Space Shuttle was going to fly 50 times a year. That was how it was sold to Congress. 50 times a year. History buff. 50 times a year. It was going to lower the cost of getting into space to $100 a pound or less. Think about that. Now you can start dreaming about what's possible. We believed it. We've just come through. We've got Star Trek, we've got Star Wars, we've got Apollo, we've got Skylab, we've got all these great things going on. We've come up through this culture. We've made it through all this. We're being told it's going to happen. Right ahead of us, it's going to happen. And remember that theme because we're coming back to that in a few minutes. So this gentleman writes a book, Dr. Gerard K. O'Neill. You need to get this book if you care about space in the future. Now this happened to be my boss later on. He was in Princeton. He wrote a book and he basically said, why don't you just use your tools, your imagination, free enterprise, and harvest the resources of space and build new civilizations beyond the Earth. And so organizations were formed and groups of us came up through this belief system. And it includes the Elon Musk and the Jeff Bezos. There was this kid going to a school in Washington State. He had a book club. One of his 12 selections was a high frontier. Myself, there was a guy named Peter Diamandis and myself and a bunch of us led to the X Prize. I was on the founding board of the X Prize. There was the International Space University. There were all these other activities. There was a thing called the L5 Society that led to a thing called the National Space Society. There was SEDS that came out of that, Students for Exploration and Development of Space. All of these things go back to this book and this gentleman. Now, here's the interesting thing. Apollo was a success. Apollo was a dramatic, incredible, impressive success. It was one of the most important successes ever achieved by the human race. It did exactly what they set out to do. They were going to go to the moon and have a photo op. The entire Apollo program was designed for one photograph. And that photograph, which I showed you a minute ago, was of an American standing on the moon with an American flag. The entire Apollo space program was for that one shot, which would prove that our system was better than the Soviet system, than the communist system. And they achieved it magnificently. They knew why they were going. The why is the question. Why do you go? Why do we go? They knew why they were going. They knew they had to achieve that goal. And they achieved that goal, but there was no goal following that. There was no real plan after Apollo. There was in our heads. A lot of us have been watching Star Trek when we knew all this. That's where it was going to go. All right? But that wasn't the government's plan. That was never their plan. Now, oh, and by the way, the only reason anybody on this planet right now, the main reason, I shouldn't say the only reason, the main reason anybody on this planet actually believes we never went to the moon is because we're not there now. And there's a psychological dissonance with why would we do something so incredible and not be there now? It doesn't have to do with whether the shadows are going in the wrong direction or the contrast ratio between the sky and the lunar surface, the reflectivity, and blah, blah, blah. And by the way, if anybody ever says we didn't go to the moon, it was all fake, I'll give you one good argument that should shut them down, if they know anything about history. We were in the middle of a Cold War with an amazingly strong and powerful foe called the Soviet Union. Do you not think if we had faked it, the Soviet Union would have said something? Just maybe. Anyway. So someday, we may go to Mars. It may be the government, maybe the private sector, but if we don't have the right reason, sometime 25 or 30 years after we get there and we can't do it any longer, we run out of money and administrations change, then what's going to happen is there's going to be a Fox television network show on your Tri-D beamed into your head, whatever projection system for the network, and it's going to question, did we ever really go to Mars? Because we're not there now. Because we won't be able to sustain it. So we have to have the right reason why. Unfortunately, what we've been left with without a reason is a jobs program. And the jobs program involves spending lots of money to basically go in circles. Lots and lots of money to fly in circles. And it's unfortunate. It's amazing. I know a lot of astronauts, they're friends, and I really think they're incredible people and such. But the leadership, the vision, hasn't been there to go any further than this. And that is basically designed to keep a lot of people in Texas, Alabama, California, Iowa, and a few other states employed, Florida employed. We've been lost in space. That's because we did it the wrong way. Now, coming back to this place where we are, which isn't a perfect example of what's possible. If we had started the computer revolution the same way we did our space program, this is what you would have today. All right? There would be major computer centers scattered in a few politically powerful states where you could take your punch card and get in line and eventually get your punch card run, if you had a lot of money and powerful lobbyists on your side, on the national computers, which would be operated by an elite force of highly trained computer minds. And whenever they would run a program and it was successful, it would be a television special.
That's actually a submarine operating plan. It's not a computer processing thing.
Thank you. What we did do instead was we gave the internet to the people. We gave it to the people and we put them in charge. We gave them the chance to go out and do their thing, to apply a million imaginations to it. And so people have become totally involved in doing all kinds of incredible work. So that's what we can do in space. We can open space that way. We can blow open the cage. We can break out of the cage and go do what's possible. So to get there, you need to get that first 100 miles up. And I worked on this company, MirCorp. We took over the Russian space station for about a year. We got our asses kicked, but in the meantime, we were able to fly Dennis Tito. It was one of the first shots, in a sense, of saying people can do things. People can actually get out there and make something happen. The other shot was the X Prize. Another one, woke people up, said, you know what, you can do this. People can do this. Recently, we saw the end of the space shuttle program. People said, that's it. It's all over. It's not really the end. It wasn't the end at all. It's just the beginning. And what started at that point was what we call the new space revolution. That name's probably going to change to next space in a year or so, but it's a new space revolution that you're seeing going on. Now, what's interesting is one of the greatest benefits of the entire Apollo program was these people that I'm about to talk to you about. These are the people that were the big payoff for us going to the moon. These were the kids at the time who were inspired to study and stay in school and do great things. So you got a company like this, Elon Musk, total Star Wars fan. Blue Origin, Jeff Bezos, total bookworm. Paul Allen, programming nerd. You got this guy, he's not as well known, but he will be. His name is Bob Bigelow. He's had 2 14-foot test modules in orbit since 2008 for his habitats. They're up there right now. He owns a thing called Budget Suites of America and a few casinos in Las Vegas. Oh, and then this guy. Just a shy little guy you never hear about. I don't know what his name was. We have all these other companies too that are not necessarily billionaire companies. These have been started by a lot of different people, a lot of friends, and these are the kinds of companies that are also coming up through there. They're founded again by the kinds of people that are inspired by that dream. We've got X-Core here. Several of these people, by the way, will be at our conference. And of course, Firefly is here. Oh, and you got these other people. They're going to the moon. Almost certainly. So we have to let 1,000 rockets fly. Because we don't know which one's going to make it, and we need them all. We need everybody. We need to open it up to as many people as we can. And we need to get out there past that first 100 miles. Because that's where it all begins. We need to begin building an industrial infrastructure in space that can serve everybody no matter what it is you want to do or where you want to go. And we have to understand why we go. We understand what the goal is. Recently, we held an event, New Worlds, in Washington, D.C. We had a place called the Reagan Center. We had 110 of the country's top space leaders in one room, many of whom hate each other. And I'm not joking, she was there. What we did was we told them, you can't talk about rockets. In fact, there was a sign at the back of the room with a rocket and a red band sign on it that said, no launch vehicle discussions allowed. We had people from NASA, FAA, SpaceX, X-Corps. We had advisors on the Republican Party. We had people who made if Hillary wins, are going to be in the administration, the space administration. We had everybody, all kinds of people in one room. They share a common dream. Once you take the rockets out of the equation, we start talking about what they're dreaming about, what it is they're after. These people are on the same page. And what the miracle was even though we didn't start on the same page at the beginning of the event, we discovered that by the end, we all shared something. And this statement, except for one vote, 99 of the people in the room, 109 of the 110 people, this is what we voted on. Now, what's significant about this? Human settlement and a thriving space economy. Human settlement should be the goal of the United States in space. Now, I believe in global things and things like that. This just happens to be the government I can influence, so I kind of work on that. And we tell people in their own countries, go work on yours. There is a law that's working its way through Congress called the Space Development Settlement Act, 2015. And now we get into what happens when you're opening space as a frontier. There are a few principles I like to talk about. That space is a place, it's not a program. And in our society, we exploit opportunities in the form of companies, private institutions, and individuals. They're not open, frontiers aren't opened by the government for the people, but by the people, supported by and in spite of their government. And without extremely low-cost, reliable, and regular access to space, there can be no frontier. Oh, and by the way, nobody stays till somebody pays. No Buck Rogers. Now, this is somewhat redundant, but also adds to it, and that is the requirements for a frontier. You have to have a regular, reliable, and low-cost access to and from space. You got to be able to get there and back cheaply, easily, reliably. You have to be able to ship people up, payloads back, things like that. It's an economy. We have to be able to use the resources of space wherever they are, for whatever purpose we want, and whoever wants to use them should be able to. And we need governments that understand this and hopefully support it. But again, it'll happen without them. It makes it a hell of a lot easier if they're on your side, not trying to stop it. Now, here's the other question. What is a settlement? Well, a settlement is what occurs when people move into a place that is beyond the borders of civilization and begin to live there and create a community. Not just as visitors, but people who see the place as their home. That's a key distinction. You're not a settler if you're on a shift, a tour of duty, or you're going home to another place when you're done doing what you're doing where you are. You're on a tour of duty. You're on a trip. You are a settler when where you are is your home. These are very simple ideas, but we have to go through a hell of a lot to get them all hammered out. Because some people would say, well, space station's a settlement. No, not really. It's a facility. It's a great facility, but it's a facility. These guys weren't settlers, Lewis and Clark. They might have been their period's equivalent of NASA. These guys are settlers. Now, here's a very interesting point. By the way, this was the spaceship of its time. This was the space capsule of its time. These are its motors. What's really interesting is what drives these motors? What kind of propellant do they use? They're standing on it. Think about that. If the propellant for these motors had to been shipped from the old world from which these settlers originally come, we would not be here right now. They lived off the land. The spacecraft itself, the spaceship itself, is made off of materials available on the land on which they were on. Not a settler, he's a miner. Now eventually, when that all runs out and he gets a cabin, he's probably too old for kids, but anyway, if he lives there and that's his home, then he becomes a settler. These people are settlers. What I like here is that this is a sod house, which means it's automatically got some radiation shielding built in. What I also like is the fact that they're so proud of their manufactured goods that they're actually standing with them. He's not sitting in his chair. He's just proud that he owns one. All right? I got this in Cirrus and Roebuck. This is not a settlement. This is a settlement. This is called a Bernal sphere. It houses 10,000 people. Those are agricultural wheels. The people live in the sphere in the middle. Sunlight is reflected in. Now, the idea that we like to talk about, or I like to talk about, is what I call Alpha Town. How can you work a partnership moving forward where the private sector and the government are working together to achieve the ends of both? Well, if you look in the past, what we did was we'd go beyond the edge of a frontier, and forgive me if some of this is non-PC. You just have to step aside. We're not going to go seize the moon from the natives who are much chagrined to be quote unquote discovered and then wiped out. All right, so we're moving into the future here. It's a different discussion. But what we would do is we would put a fort beyond the edges of the frontier for the purposes of the government, for their own national strategy, their own ideas, whatever it was they were doing. They would secure a transportation route in between that fort and quote unquote civilization. And the traders and other people would start using that. And an outpost, a trading post, would spring up around the outside of the fort. If you cut to 100 or 200 years later, the fort becomes a monument in the middle of a thriving economic metropolis called the city. That's what you can do if you do it right. If you understand why you're going into space, why you're spending taxpayer dollars and investing them wisely as you go, that's how it works. So we could do it in space. The government forward on the frontier. So they start buying stuff. Transportation to and from the space station. SpaceX, Orbital, other companies, to and from the space station. Now they're starting to build markets. They can carry other things. They're creating productivity. And you use different contractors so that you create competition. You don't do a one-to-one space shuttle replacement with one vehicle replacing the shuttle. You create a competitive marketplace so that they are starting to work against each other in the sense of driving the costs down. And then you work with the private sector to help them make better stuff. One of the things that NASA does that you don't hear a lot about is helping with aerodynamic studies, research, things like that. There's a great role for them. This is going to fly next year, by the way. Wingtip to wingtip, larger than a football field. Gigantic. Burt Rutan.
What company is that?
That's Vulcan. I think they're going to be at the conference.
Yep.
Yes. That's Paul Allen's company, Vulcan. And then you let us try out our stuff on your space station. A little round thing is a Bigelow Hab, which, by the way, the research for the original Bigelow Hab came from NASA. He took it, he privatized it, invested his money into it, and interestingly, in a full circle, the circle of space life, it has come back and it's now going to be attached to the space station. Then you begin to grow your own stuff. Maybe the government comes in and does an anchor-tenant relationship. And then it starts to grow. And then we start to live off the land as we get out there. And we build a facility, for example, of what's called the L point. There's a gravitationally somewhat neutral balancing point where the gravitational pulls of bodies in space kind of create what you might call an eddy, where you put something and kind of keep it there with a minimum amount of use of propellant. That's what the government is interested in doing, perhaps. Our company would love to put some asteroid facility capabilities out there and start working off of that. Maybe the government creates a demand for propellants in space and creates depots and says, you know what, if you just bring us propellant, we don't care where it comes from, the moon or Mars, the moon or asteroids or whatever, we'll pay you for it, and that creates a market. And then we start growing, we start building. It's starting to happen right now. These companies are already doing these things. Bigelow just got a finding from the from the FAA that basically helps create protection around whatever it is they build on the moon. Basically saying that they have a zone of non-interference around whatever facility they put on the moon. Very similar to what you would have around an oil well in the open ocean. Why would they be doing that if they weren't planning on going? It starts to grow. We start to build. We start to do more and more. We do a major, I would like to see a base on the south pole of the moon, which turns out that's probably where a lot of what we call the volatiles, the water, ice are. But you're going to want to have that as a mixed facility with the private sector and public sector working together. If the government is still set on going to Mars, they're going to want to do some tests and start learning. There are people that say go direct to Mars. A friend of mine, Bob Zubin, is one of them. There's an argument either way. But in this case, what you could do is have the mixed base on the south pole of the moon, and the people that are doing backup for the campers on the far side, which would be astronauts practicing to go to Mars, would be based here, renting facilities from the same Bigelows and the other companies. And these guys are doing the equivalent of camping in the backyard until you get ready to go out in the woods, because you need to be able to run into the house. And it starts all over again, and we start to grow. I love this because I'm a tree hugger. I'm an environmentalist. I did a summer with Greenpeace. I have the creds. I was telling somebody a long time ago, I said, you know what, I'm your worst nightmare. I'm a tree-hugging, liberal libertarian with a gun. And the guy said, you must be from Texas. And then off we go to the red planet. There are a lot of people that want to go this way. We might want to stop at Phobos and Deimos. You're going to hear a lot of this in our conference, by the way. And you start to repeat the recipe over and over again. Basically the same thing, government, private, public partnerships, international partnerships. Who can provide what gets the job? Who does it best? And we grow a new civilization. And what's really interesting, and let's get down to this, we'll wrap this up here in a minute. What's really interesting is you'll hear a lot of economic arguments for going into space. A lot of my friends whip out spreadsheets, they're closing their business plans, they're trying to close their business plans in different ways. And what's really interesting though is when you start really getting down into it, the reason we want to go is because we want to go. But the best way to look at that is look at Mars. You're not going to be exporting anything from Mars that is of any great value other than maybe a few rocks and stuff. That price will drop the more common they become. There's really nothing you can export from Mars. Like maybe you're on Mars and you've worked out a great life support system that could be used to save people that have lung problems back on the Earth. And you want to export that or the IP for that back to the Earth. The challenge with that is the people on the moon and the people who are living in free space in the asteroids have probably already done it or are doing it. In other words, there's really nothing absolutely unique to Mars that you can export. And so it starts to reveal, when you start to look at it, the further away you get from Earth, we start to get down to the real reasons why we're going. So when you're in free space, or LEO, low Earth orbit, where the space station is, there are a lot of good reasons. There's politics, strategic, the high ground, you've got science, you've got planetary defense, the economics, you can get it in tourism, you can get it all these different things that you're hearing about all the time in low Earth orbit. You can even, by the way, you can orbit space solar power plants potentially and send clean energy down to the Earth if you want. There are all these different potential things. I'm not going to judge them whether they're perfect or great, brilliant ideas, but they're reasonable ideas. You get to the moon, the list gets a little bit shorter. You still got the high ground argument, you've got the politics of it, you've got science, studying the history of the solar system, the universe. You've got the economics of resources, maybe you got tourism, maybe you got Dennis Tito times 10 who wants to go to the moon. Maybe you have somebody wants to put a monastery up there or something like that. There's been a lot of monasteries on frontiers. You get to Mars, you've got science, yeah. You can look at the history of the universe, you can look at maybe there's life or not life. It's a very interesting set of questions. But the economics aren't there. There's no economic argument, as I said. Not a real one. And I've talked to a lot of people who've looked at this up and down and sideways. The best economic deal you can make for going to Mars is to charge people for a one-way trip. Have them sign over their house and their fortune to you before they do. And it could happen. By the way, when I talk about going to Mars one way, I heard somebody once say, well, that's a suicide mission. No, they're called settlers. They're called pilgrims. But there's no real economic reason. So we have to look at why we really go. Why is this important? And we have to really then at that point kind of come out of the spreadsheets. And I, again, know a lot of the people that are doing the business plan. And I chaired a thing in London recently on the economics. And I looked at these guys in all their suits, and they're all dressed to the nines, and they got their deals, and they're all in there cutting their deals, and closing their plans. And I realized I was looking at a bunch of 14-year-olds who were dreaming about the future. The reason we go into space is because it's there. The reason we go into space is because we want to go. The reason we go into space is because it's inspiring. The reason we go is because we feel called to go. It's what living creatures do. I believe it's what we must do. I believe it's who we are, and I believe it's why we exist. Our job, in my belief system, is to expand life in space. That's why we exist. That's who we are. That's what we're about. It's all about heading out into these new worlds. And it's all amazing. Nothing I'm showing you here, by the way, is science fiction. It's all completely doable by extensions, logical extensions of current technology. It's all out there waiting for us. cities in space, as big as we want to build them. We can go see the universe, we can explore it, we can touch it, we can taste it, we can feel it. And this time we get to go together, we don't take it from anybody. This time we give it to everybody. It's all about carrying the light of life to worlds now dead, carrying the seeds of life to worlds now dark, and the eyes and hands and minds of humanity to places yet unseen, untouched, and unexplored. That's what we're about in the New Worlds Institute. That's what we're about in the New Worlds movement, if you want to call it that. We're here to go out there. I believe that as a human being, my job is to protect this planet and to expand the life of this planet beyond this world. There may or may not be a galaxy full of other beings out there coming this way, listening patiently to a guy standing in front of the room on their planet talking about people being out there and those other planets coming the other way. I can only bet on the card in my hand that I can see. And the card that I can see is this planet has life. And apologies to my friends from LA, I used to live there. With the exception of LA, I believe that this life has sentient, intelligent beings. But I believe that the possibility of our future is magnificent. I believe that what we can do as human beings and the things that lie in front of us, the capabilities that can be created, the very vision of who we are as a civilization can be so transformed by taking on the role of the carriers of the seeds of life. Imagine being a child who today would wake up and say, why am I here? Why am I here? I need a better car, I need to have a bigger house, I need to do this, I need to do that. Who instead could look up into the night sky and see the contrails of rockets flying off of Mars. Who could see stars that were actually habitats where human beings lived and are pushing out. Who would turn on the news and hear about the discovery of life on other solar systems. Imagine that new context for being as a rationale for a civilization. That's what I'm about. That's the stand I take. That's who I am and what I'm about, and that's what the New Worlds Institute is about. And we would love it if you get involved, if you join us, if you want to be a part of it. We're excited. We want you to be excited with us. Thanks. Any questions? Yes, sir.
So I'm curious, who is beginning to look into the mid to long-term political implications of having settlements out there? It is a remarkably powerful position to have over Earth, for example. And a lot of the near and mid-space science fiction deals with the corporation as the money establishing the society and then stepping on people and holding them back. I'm not presenting that as my view. I'm just curious if somebody is investigating ways in which that might be addressed here and now so that it grows well.
2 points to keep in mind. One about science fiction. Science fiction, because it is about worlds that do not yet exist, is a perfect place to try out social questions. And so that's why so often science fiction is dark and foreboding about the future, because we get to try out things there and say, well, what if the corporations ruled civilization? What if we denuded the earth and Mad Max could, what if zombies came? Whatever, but I mean, that's where we get to try out different things. But those are warning signs, and they are worth paying attention to. The fact is that where we are right now, the kinds of people that I know of and the companies that I know of are actually, gosh, if you were going to pick corporations that you wanted to go and do this kind of thing, I would pick like Elon Musk and SpaceX, His other company is a solar power company, and he's about, people and these guys. As far as who is looking out for that, the lawyers are starting to have a good time. I can tell you that. There is a policy group I'm a part of that meets I was in The Hague last year. We were looking at property rights in space, resource rights, things like that. It's starting to become something that's very real, and it has to be managed in an enlightened way. We can't shut off the rest of the galaxy because we're trying to apply the same philosophical paradigms of the past to the future. In other words, the paradigm, and by the way, in space we actually get to use the word paradigm shift. All right? You know, my iPhone 6 is not a freaking paradigm shift. It's just a cool phone. A paradigm shift at the level of Copernicus is our relationship to the universe. So we actually get to use the phrase. And the paradigm shift, that one of the levels of it, is the idea that the way we used to look at our planet, where you would protect the resources against the evil corporations or things like that, or misuse and rape and plunder and pillage the planet, makes perfect sense in the closed system of the earth, and I totally support it. But when you go outside and you enter the unlimited resource base, the unlimited capabilities of the entire universe, you want almost the opposite. Because if your standard is that this planet is precious, and the life of this planet is precious, I would rather dig the minerals I need out of an asteroid that has Earth in its crosshairs than rip them out of the heart of a living mountain ecosystem on this planet. So it's a shift. And a lot of the conversations that we have in the future do not make sense today. If that helps, I kind of went off on that.
So the main question was just who is looking at that now?
There are different groups being formed right now. Sir?
I'm very interested in property rights, and it occurred to me that middle-class people pay all the taxes, and they're going to be paying taxes for these outposts that you're talking about, and have already paid all the taxes to figure out the technology and all. So does that mean the taxpayers are going to subsidize various wealthy people who happen to leapfrog into space, and then the people who actually pay for the infrastructure to get there, which is this mass of us miserable taxpayers, and how do we get our value out of it? In other words, what I'm saying is it's not, getting there has been subsidized by the government. So does the government and the people somehow own some part of it?
You have a nice laptop.
Stickers?
No, but I like the fact that you're using decent technology that was subsidized by government taxpayers largely in some instances. And you're communicating with other people on a network that was subsidized largely by the government taxes paid to the government.
Yeah, but this is accessible to a normal person. This
Exactly,
costs
exactly, but the first ones weren't. And as costs and competition were implemented, the costs came down and now you can use it. So we have to apply that same rule, all right? Now, Elon or myself,
Which I don't understand the rule.
we have to apply the same rule that we have to try and approach this. I shouldn't say rule. We have to approach this in as enlightened approach as enlightened way as we can. We have to try and make sure that we are distributing wealth as widely as possible. Cell phones, okay? Free enterprise. I believe in free enterprise. I believe in enlightened free enterprise. But I think it's the best way of distributing wealth and capability. There are people sitting on dirt floors in Africa that have cell phones. And I think that that's kind of the model we want to try and do. Now, there's $14 billion of American taxpayer money that goes into the space program every year. It's going, it's there. It's tiny actually when you look at it. It's a tiny amount of money. That money could be poured one way into doing stuff that doesn't pay back in any form. Maybe a little knowledge, things like that. Or you can invest it in such a way that it helps leverage the creation of multiple companies who are competing, and as they compete, lower the cost, which means you get to fly more scientific missions because the cost is lower of getting into space. My little spacecraft I was showing, little 3U. Okay, these little spacecraft now. We're able to start getting out there, and there's students and there are all kinds of people all over the world now that are starting to access space, almost the way you're accessing the internet. So it's coming. We have to be enlightened about it. But I believe in the free enterprise system. I believe that if we work the right way, the cost can come down.
Just to follow up, I'm a
Yes.
hardcore libertarian, so I'm totally for free enterprise, and we don't have free enterprise, that's my whole point.
Right.
I'm not sure that a public-private partnership is a good idea, I call that fascism. So, just to make things.
No, at the level of your personal philosophy, I totally understand that. We have a lot of libertarians in the space field, and there are some of them who are very, very proud of the fact that they're not taking any government money at all.
Yeah, that's good.
So we represent a cross-section too. Okay. Sarah, and then I'll work my way across.
So, thinking about exploration through the history of time, there's never really been exploration that occurred on a kind of kumbaya basis. It's always been winner take all.
Mhm.
Governments have explored things so they could plunge and pillar its resources and steal them. Well, I'm not to say this should hold us back from doing it.
Right.
What's being done to prevent a sort of winner-take-all scenario of occurring among the people doing this, whether it's private enterprise, whether it's government, or whatever?
The first answer is there's a lot of ball for the winner to try and pay. It's pretty big out there. And I'm being glib. That's probably a little bit too glib. But the idea is that, again, by being aware, by being participatory, by being enlightened right now, we can try and make sure that we don't repeat the specific mistakes of the past. There are different entities that are trying to create ways of working together. We are looking at, what I find is more cooperation, competition in the different companies I know, even our competitors. So yeah, it's a fear. You're human. We're human. What's to stop Johnny from, killing little Abby in the playground and taking her food because she can't? Because there's some modicum of social structuring that goes in there to stop us from being that way. One would hope we can then overlay that on what we do as we move forward. It's always something we have to watch out for, just as what this gentleman said. We have to watch out for those things. That's why you get involved now. I saw a hand, yes, sir.
What is your opinion on settling Venus or Mars and the Moon?
There is an argument, somebody's been talking to me about that last couple of weeks. There's an argument of doing floating habitats in the upper atmosphere of Venus. I say yay. If you want to be a Venusian, go for it. If you want to create a lobby to get your missions funded, go for it. I'm totally for it. It's not my favorite thing. There's an argument, for example, somebody made that you could go to Mercury. There's a little oscillation in the way that Mercury goes around the sun, and it turns out that there may be a little tiny temperate strip just right there. You hope the planet doesn't go wonky or you're dead, but I'm fine with that. It's not where I would say you want to start. And if I had to pick, it wouldn't be my favorite, but I think it's interesting. There's a lot of, it's big. There's
Well, it's counterintuitive to your argument.
Pardon?
It's counterintuitive to the argument of going out. It's going inside to go back out, right?
Counterintuitive?
In the sense that it's centering on the solar system instead of going out.
Well, no, you gotta start somewhere, that's all.
Out is every direction.
Yeah, you have to start somewhere. You start with the islands that are closest to the
Everywhere Earth is now after the center of Mars.
But Venus is cool. Venus is cool. I'm fine with Venus. I just wouldn't want to step out one day and forget that, Somebody was raising their hand over here? Yes,
Well, I had
sir.
the same question about Venus.
Yeah. It's interesting. I've heard a lot about Venus. Somebody must have published something in the last few months because it's really come up a lot lately. Hang on, let me get this gentleman in the back.
Go ahead.
Ma'am?
Oh, I was just gonna say, Elon said in some interview or something, it would be possible theoretically terraforming using shade to get things to precipitate out, to get liquid.
There you go.
And that's probably.
Reversing the runaway greenhouse effect.
Exactly.
We're actually doing the opposite experiment here.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we can do it on Venus, why don't we?
People talk about transforming atmospheres and terraforming, and the way you do it is you create a lot of self-replicating systems that take the native materials and transform them into gases that transform the atmosphere. which is kind of exactly what we're doing with our cars and everything here, but in reverse. Venue forming is what.
Yeah.
So what do you attribute the current momentum that's happening in the exploration field? What changed in the last 20 years that there is now the momentum?
A lot of people work their asses off for about 25, ever since the L5 Society was created. This is one of the overnight successes that, for example, just an example. 1995, I testified in front of the House Space Subcommittee. I called for commercial. Now, by the way, this wasn't me being brilliant. I was speaking for our community, right? But I called for commercial transportation as a mandate to and from the space station to enable the creation of commercial markets. That the shuttle, I can show you press releases from the Space Frontier Foundation saying scuttle the shuttle back in the 90s, that we had to get it out of the way so that we could get this industrial complex out of the way to open it, like take the big tree down so little trees. There are a lot of people who were working very hard. And I want to highlight that for a moment, because we have a tendency to focus in on the Elon Musk and the Jeff Bezoses and the billionaires who have rolled in with the money that they've made by staying in school and studying. And there's a lot of people who have worked really, really, really hard, have given up their lives. I've watched marriages fall apart. I've watched people just surrender their entire life so they can anonymously work in the background to change a piece of legislation in such a way that a private company could get involved, that something could be shifted so that this minefield could be cleared, political minefield. And they go up against the lobbyists for the big boys, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, these other companies. And these people are like grassroots, you know, and they're sending out emails and stuff like that, like, you gotta get your, call your senator, call your congressperson, we have to change this law, and then the Elons and people like that come through. I mean, I met Elon before he ever had SpaceX, and he had the dream, but he didn't have a way of doing it. He couldn't find a cheap enough rocket to send flowers to Mars, so he built his own. And you can look that up. There's actually, I teased him. I called it begonias on Mars. He got pissed off. Anyway, yeah. So a lot of good people have worked really hard. A lot of good people like you, who actually sat in meetings like this, like I was when I sat there, and somebody gave a speech, and it turned you on, and it changed your life. For me, I was sitting cross-legged on the floor at Stephen F. Austin University in Nacogdoches, Texas. After having bailed out all my scholarships and blown it off so I could get stoned, I was stoned out of my mind. Sitting in the student center, and there was a guy at the front of the room named Timothy Leary, showing some of those same space economy shots that I just showed you. And I was like, oh, I gotta do this. And then about 3 months later, another guy came in to do a speech, and I was a techie, I was doing lighting. And his name was Gene Roddenberry, and he was giving a talk about Star Trek. I said, please, how do I do this? I've yelled at all my teachers, dropped all my classes, I can't do, what can I do? He said, just hang on to your dream and never, ever, ever give up. And then he stopped and he said, you know what my job was? So I was a cop. Gene Roddenberry was an LAPD officer when he wrote Star Trek. But he hung on to his dream and he stayed with it. And that's the key. We have to stay with our dreams. But you can sit in this room and walk out of here and you don't have to do anything. You've got a little bit of knowledge. You're going to see something on TV. You can tell your friends, I saw that. Oh, I heard about that. Or you can get involved. Our request to you is that you get involved. And you can get involved in several ways. One, come back next month. I promise you it won't be me. We'll have another speaker. We're going to be bringing in people from different companies and different organizations to come and talk about stuff. Number two, you can tell your friends and bring them. Number three, you can actually get involved, maybe help us run next month's event. Help us put it together, help us network, talk to these great people over here, and get involved. Number four, you can take a bunch of sign-up forms, take a bunch of these conference flyers with you and give them to people at work. Number five, we have these really, really cool posters. Take some of these posters, put them up at your place of work for the conference. The New Worlds Conference is going to be awesome. We're going to let you go here in a minute. The New Worlds Conference is going to be at the Palmer Center. It's 2 days. We're trying to run it unlike any other space conference. Student rate is $15. Professional rate, I think, is $150, something like that. Basically, the idea is to start talking about what we do when we get out there. Now, this year, because we've only had 3 months to organize, it's going to be sort of a smorgasbord sampler of what we're going to do next year. But they're going to be like TED-type talks of all sorts. Mars needs farmer. Why Mars? Why the moon? Why free space? Crowdsourcing on the frontier. There's an entire workshop, all-day workshop on Saturday about crowdsourcing on the frontier. How we distribute the work. Oh, and then Thursday night, a rock concert. What? Friday night, I'm sorry. Friday night, Thursday night. 6th Street, wandering around.
Newworlds.space.
Newworlds.space is the registration. But I don't know if any of you have heard of a band called Architect. You gotta come Friday night and see these guys. They use Tesla coils to play rock music. And you have not heard Iron Man till you've heard it played with light. So come to the event, come join us. We would love to, we're looking for volunteers. We're looking for people to join the Institute. We're a 501c3 charitable educational organization. We're just finishing up our first NASA grant application right now. And we're gonna be looking at what it is we need. It's the punch list. What do you need to build a house on Mars or the moon, or free space, or Venus? A lot of balloons. You're like a guy in that movie. Oh, shoot the balloons. That's what we're going to be about, and we really invite you to get involved. So thanks for coming. Really appreciate it. Thank you, guys.